Hello, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Susan Evans, and I'm honored to welcome you to today's webinar featuring Steve Gurney and a discussion on solo aging. Thank you, Kensington, for supporting these powerful educational events for our aging community. I was first introduced to Kensington in 2015. Our family made the difficult decision to move my father to Kensington in Northern California. He was living with dementia and it was greatly impacting my mother's health, and I did not want to lose both my parents to this dreadful disease. My life pivoted and I did a 180 from being a recent empty nester to dedicating my efforts to education and connecting the aging and the Alzheimer's community. Kensington focuses on relationship based care, care built on the foundation of their promise to love and care for your family as they do their own. It is programs such as the one you are attending now that are so important for those of us walking through a caregiving journey to hear from expert professionals like Steve Gurney on keeping us current with the latest advances in care, management, and treatments that have conditions that affect both seniors and their families. Kensington is truly privileged to support care partners and professionals from coast to coast. Those of you on the West Coast, good afternoon, and those of you on the East Coast, good evening. Please utilize the Q&A function to submit questions during the webinar. A copy of today's webinar and a copy of Steve Gurney's presentation will be delivered to your inboxes for you to share with your friends and family. Please join me in welcoming Steve Gurney.
Hey, how's
How
it
are
going,
you?
Susan?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great because I'm here at the Kensington in Reston, Virginia, and I understand there's a group right down the hall from me watching this on a big screen that I'm going to get to meet after we're done. So really charged up to be with y'all this evening on the East Coast and talk about my absolute favorite topic to talk about, solo aging. Um, should I just kick it off, or did
Kick it,
you?
kick it off. Give me 1 second. I like to talk a lot. You know that you and I are similar that way.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
tell me why solo aging is one of your favorite topics.
Well, because I've been in this business of senior living for 35 years, and the challenge that myself and all providers and concerned individuals related to older adults and longevity struggle with is getting people to plan ahead. And when I say plan ahead, I- just having a conversation about what if this happened, or just thinking about the future. The phrase that I hear every single day of the week is, "Oh, that's nice, but I'm not ready yet." Now, when it comes to the topic of solo aging, if somebody identifies themselves as a solo ager, either now or in the future, all of a sudden planning becomes a priority because it's sort of like, hey, look, I got to take responsibility. I got to come up with my plan. And I love that because the other end of the equation is the many of the calls that I get are from next door neighbors, are from adult children that are scrambling around in a crisis situation, and they never had a conversation with their loved one on how they wanted to live their life if situations changed. So that's really why I like it. It's an empowering topic that really creates a better life for everybody.
And I encourage everybody to utilize the Q&A function. I mentioned that earlier, but Steve and I in our conversations about this is so important to be an advocate for your future because we are living longer. That's fact. It's also fact that 6 months in the life of someone in their 80s is like 10 years of someone in their 50s or 60s. So it's so important. That's just fact. It's so important that you plan because you're married to Betsy. You've been married to Betsy for 45 years, 50 years. I don't think, and I hate to say this, but I don't think you and Betsy are going to pass on the same exact day. So one of you needs to be prepared for what you're going to do as a solo ager. It's inevitable. Anyway, I'm going to let you take it away, and then I'm going to come pop back in the screen, and you and I
Yeah.
can talk about some more and field some questions. Thank you.
Yeah, and I love it. And Barbara's already got a question in the queue. Barbara, we're going to tackle that, but let me share my screen here.
I'll see you
Yeah.
soon.
You got it. All right, folks. Uh, as I'd mentioned, really charged up about today's discussion, and I am gonna get through some talking points as quickly as possible. And then Susan and I are going to have more of a conversation with you, and we're going to answer Barbara's questions and other questions. And what you see on the screen are actually questions that came in at sign up for this event. And I want to quickly go through these. I'm not going to answer them. I'm just going to read them to you because I want them to, I'm going to do my best in the next 20 minutes to touch on all these topics. So the first one says, I'm desperately looking for someone who I can appoint as my medical power of attorney. I do not want a guardian. Please give me resources. The next one says, how can I find a trustworthy person to pay bills in case of cognitive decline? The next one says, how does a solo ager engage in community activities and build social connections if they're an introvert? And another one, helping a solo ager's personal care, comfort, medical care with limited finances and possibly dementia. And someone asks, please discuss options for continuing care for solo agers. And the last one that we got before we even started this thing was, as a couple, when do you talk about and prepare for solo aging? Now, for the next few minutes, I'm going to touch on all of those topics. But then when I'm done, we're going to go back and revisit. And if I need to kind of clean things up and answer Barbara's question, that's what we're going to do. Okay. The first thing that I want to kind of reiterate, which I said with Susan, is why I like this topic of solo aging. And and the main reason is that people that identify as solo agers are more apt to plan ahead. And AARP actually has a study. You can go to the AARP website, go into the search engine, type in solo agers. They did a great research project on solo aging back in 2023. And what you see on the screen are, I guess, six topics that they polled people that identified with solo agers and people that don't really see themselves as a solo ager. And the first is losing our independence or having to rely on others. The second is not having enough money. The next is being alone without family or friends around. The next is not being able to stay in my current home, being moved somewhere against my will, or needing help with daily activities. And the interesting thing here is that solo agers are anywhere from 10 to 20% more concerned about these topics than the general public. And and some may look at that and say, oh, wow, well, that's really sad. But I look at it like, heck yeah, we have got a population that is taking charge of their own future and having conversations and planning ahead. Okay. And that's why I like this topic. Now, tonight I'm going to talk about 3 points, but we can go down a ton of rabbit holes. Okay. But the first mindset that I want everybody to be in is that we are all aging solo. So, some of you may be on this webinar because you're a professional in the field and you're concerned about your clients, or you've got a next door neighbor and you're concerned about them, and that's you're gathering information. But for tonight, I want everybody listening to this to think of themselves as a solo ager. because we all are solo aging. There's only one person aging in my body, and it's me. All right. Now, um, I'm married and I've got two kids, but I can almost guarantee that me and my wife are not going to pass away on the same day. um, I can almost guarantee that we might be caregivers for each other, but if one of us passes away, I'm going to be solo. And you might say, well, Steve, you got those two kids, they can take care of you. Listen, right now, I wouldn't want either one of my kids taking care of me, but even 10, 20 years down the road, I don't want them to rearrange their life to take care of me. I want to be in charge of how and where and what is going on, and I want to minimize the burden that I am on the people around me. But if they want to help me, that's wonderful. So I pulled up some cool quotes here, at least I thought they were cool, that might get you in this mindset of us all being solo agers. We may age in the company of others, but the journey within our bodies is uniquely our own. Aging is the ultimate personal journey. No one else can take the wheel. And last, while we share life with many, we age alone in our own personal universe of one. And so when we take the solo aging mindset, all of a sudden we're in charge. We're the one driving that car. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Okay. Now, I know there's a bunch of people on this call that don't know who I am, okay? And I run a community called the Positive Aging Community, and we have weekly online discussions, just like this one, and we talk about every topic under the sun. But one of our most popular topics is this topic of solo aging, and so I did the math a few weeks ago. Um, when I was working on this discussion with Susan, and I have basically led, I think, close to 40 online discussions and in-person discussions on this topic of solo aging with all kinds of authors and experts on this topic. And I added up the numbers, and I've had in the audience of all those discussions over 5,000 different people have attended these discussions. And consequently, what has happened, because I've been involved with this topic so long, every time I do one of these solo aging discussions, I get anywhere from 2 to 20 people scheduling time on my calendar to talk about their own solo aging concern or a challenge that they're faced with, or just to share with me a solution. And so it's sort of like by accident, I become sort of a very knowledgeable person on this topic. Now, I won't call myself an expert. I just, sort of gleaned a bunch of knowledge. And last week, we had a solo aging all-star discussion on our platform, and actually had the woman who coined the phrase solo aging. Her name is Dr. Sarah Gebar, and she wrote a book on planning to live alone. And she came up with this phrase, solo aging. And you're going to, if you haven't heard it before, the term that was used before Sarah came up with that term, it is elder orphan. And just when I say the term elder orphan, I almost start crying. But solo aging is something, I think it's a very fitting term. It's something that a lot of people are proud of. It's like, hey, I'm solo, man. I'm doing it all on my own. Okay, so in this solo aging all-star discussion, a question came through the queue, and the person said to these three experts that I had, "What is the most important thing for a solo ager to do first?" And all three of the panel members said, building your personal community, putting together your, they each had a different term for basically taking an inventory of the people around you and the connections that you have. Now, I've got my own term that I like to use, and I call it building your personal village. So that's what I'm going to try to do tonight as quickly as I can is I'm going to walk you through one way of taking an inventory and building your personal village. Because the other thing that happened on this discussion was I got a few comments when we were done that said, "Hey, it was really good that you talked about building this personal village, but I really want to know how to do it." And so tonight for this one, I really put some thought and into this, and I want to walk you through how you build your personal village, at least help you get started, okay? Or help a loved one get started. So here's the first thing when we're building our personal village, what we're doing is we're taking an inventory of all the people in our lives, the community that's around us, and the organizations that can potentially serve us as we navigate the chapters of life. And the and I have a few points that I have on the screen here, but our I like this one. Our personal village is a tapestry of relationships that provides not just assistance, but also purpose, joy, and a sense of belonging. And I like using that because, look, I know a lot of people are on this call today because it's like the focus is, more healthcare and who's going to do something for me if I can't do it any longer. But building a personal village should provide joy and purpose to all of us. And if we get in trouble, if there's a change in our healthcare status, if we need a ride to a doctor's appointment, we can tap into that personal village. Okay. So let me walk you through one way to do an inventory and to work on this, whether it be for yourself or somebody that you love. Okay, so step one is you've got to identify the current members of your village. And what I recommend, if you're a notebook person, if you're a spreadsheet person, is just start making lists. And it's okay if your list isn't as long as it would have been 20 years ago. You got to start somewhere. And it's very important, I think, to write these things down or type these things down or dictate them into your phone. But start with your family and friends. And look, on a regular basis, I talk to folks that have no connection to their blood relatives, even if they have them, is that I regularly talk to people whose friends are better family than their blood relatives ever were. That's okay. Write down these names. Um, your neighbors, your community, and when I say community, it's just think about the community that you live in and the resources that you have been a part of. Write it down in an effort to make to help you with this personal inventory. And then we're going to talk a little bit about different professionals that can help us. But if you have any professionals in your life that are a part of your personal village, if you've got a doctor, a chiropractor, a massage therapist, a behavioral therapist, a yoga instructor, write them down. They're part of your personal village, and it's going to make a difference as we navigate this solo aging planning and discussion. So now, step two, what I want you to think about is your personal purpose inventory and to identify opportunities. And I think when I typed out this slide, I said weaknesses. And I don't like using weaknesses. Aging is something that should not be looked at as declinist or negative in any way. We have opportunities. If you've got a void in your personal village, that's an opportunity to meet somebody new and to find a new resource. Okay. But let me first tackle the personal purpose inventory. on this same notebook or spreadsheet, I want you to write down the things that give you joy, okay? And it could be things that give you joy today, but go back 10, 20, 30 years ago. And if you were into stamp collecting 40 years ago, write it down. It's something that that gave you joy, and it's part of your personal purpose, okay? And armed with you've got your list of your current village, you've got what gives you joy and purpose, you've got some weaknesses. So, like for example, let's say that your best friend moved away, 6 months ago, and you're kind of feeling like you don't have a buddy anymore. It's write that down as an opportunity. I got an opportunity to find another best friend. And I I know that this is something that we all just do behind the scenes in our head, but I want you at this stage to start documenting this, because if it's documented, you can enhance it. So step three is connect and nurture. So now, whether you've got two people on this list or 200 people on this list, I want you to reach out to these folks. Now, what I don't want you to do is reach out to these folks and say, "Hey, went to Gurney's talk and I did this inventory and I need somebody to drive me to doctor's appointments if I can't drive." Don't do it that way. Flip it around. You call the first person on your list. "Hey, I'd like to get together for coffee. Hey, we haven't talked in a while." Or, "Hey, you want to just chat on the phone for a bit and let me catch you up on things." And at some point in that conversation, and maybe it's two or three conversations before you bring this up, you say, "Hey, look, I want you to know that I would give you a ride to the doctors if I could. Um, and I just wanted to know that I value you as a friend, and I'm willing to do whatever you need as long as I'm able." What you want is, when you're talking to your network, you want, when you offer something like that, that the person on the other end offers something back in return. If you don't get that kind of response, more than likely, you have a good friend there, but you don't necessarily have somebody in your network that is gonna be there for you when you need help. And that's okay. Here's the thing, folks, whenever I've coached somebody through this process, they are often surprised. They are surprised because the people that they thought would step up to the plate and be there for them because of a long, tight friendship were not really there in the level that they thought. And then the people that they kind of, and I'm not saying took for granted, but they weren't the tight relationships that they had over the years, just stepped up the plate and were, going gangbusters. And you may have noticed this if you're ever like sick or anything like that, kind of who comes to your aid without even being called. A lot of times it's not who you would expect. Um, so when you're gonna go to your friends and you're gonna say, and your network, and you're gonna sort of throw this out and you're gonna start having a conversation. And then the other thing that I want you to have in your back pocket is your list. It's the things that give you joy and sort of the things that you're looking for. Maybe as you do your inventory, you are looking for an estate planning attorney, or somebody, like the question that came in the beginning, somebody to pay your bills. Your network may have a great resource for you to tap into, and there's nothing better than tapping into a resource that one of your friends is using. Okay, step four. So you've got your personal inventory, you got your purpose, you're starting to have conversations with the people that you know, and it's going to begin to become clear where some things might be missing in your personal village. It may be your purpose is that, gosh, I really liked stamp collecting. I haven't done it in 40 years. I still got my stamps, or I got rid of my stamps, but I just like talking about stamps. Well, maybe it's time to join a stamp collecting club. And I bring this up right off the top of my head, but the point being is to spread your wings a little bit. And the earlier question was talking about how, as an introvert, how do I make more connections into the community? Listen, believe it or not, I'm an introvert too. I like to have purpose. So me just going to like a cocktail party where I only know a couple of people, that's very uncomfortable. But if I'm going to a cocktail party for my bike club, I'm going in there with where I know everybody in the room likes to talk about and ride bikes just like me. And so that makes me more comfortable. And if I use my stamp collecting analogy, hopefully an introverted stamp collector would feel more comfortable in a room with other people that share that same passion. So that's where your purpose inventory is very important, especially for introverts. So think about, what gives you joy? Is it, musical theater? Is it, just book clubs, just current events discussions? There are so many organizations and clubs out there that can help us expand our personal village and make deep and meaningful relationships. And last on my list, volunteering is like there's nothing better than helping other people to make yourself feel better, but also to help the world. And I want to share a story real quick about a conversation that I had with somebody who identified as a solo ager, and she was very emotional because she had a procedure and she could not get a ride home. She couldn't get any of her friends to pick her up. She ultimately did get a friend that picked her up, but that friend was not definite. She was like, "Look, I'll put this on my calendar, but if my son calls me, he's my priority." And after reflecting on that, she realized, "Gosh, I got to come up with a plan." Well, she joined the village in her community. And if those of you aren't familiar, there are these aging in place villages all over the country where neighbors help neighbors. And one of the main things they do is they give rides to each other. So she joined the village. Had a procedure in a month. She signed up. She had her ride together. But as she was talking to me on the phone, she started getting really emotional. She goes, "How pathetic is this? I had to join a club to get a ride. I should be able to call in my friends. I should have enough friends. I've always had friends and they could give me rides. But now I got to join a club to get a ride." And I said, "Listen," uh, and I was kind of firm. I said, "You should be feeling sorry for yourself. What I want you to do, you got a month before that procedure. Get out there and start volunteering to give rides to other people." And she called me back in a couple of weeks and said, "That was the best thing that I ever did because now I realize I'm not the only one in this boat." And I was giving rides to people that are in the same boat as me. And actually, one of the women that I gave a ride to, we're going to go have coffee. And I may have met a new friend. So think about that. And here's step 5 and step 6, and then I'm going to go to the next series of slides. But don't be afraid to be vulnerable if you have once you have a relationship. Of course, you don't want to start a new relationship and then just unload on people, but being vulnerable shows authenticity, and if somebody is open to deep dialogue, they're gonna share too. So don't be afraid to be vulnerable. It can be tough, but as we're building our personal village, we want deep and meaningful relationships, and the way that you get there is showing some form of vulnerability and what have you. But the opposite end of that is setting boundaries. Okay, is that it's a balance between being vulnerable and also, hey, look, when you offer to to help someone, it's like, look, I can help you on Wednesdays, and that's it. But I really care about you, and I'm going to help you on Wednesday afternoon. And I'll also maybe help you with finding other people that could help you on Thursday and Friday if you need help then. Okay. So, and then step six, and I think this is important. This personal village is a live ecosystem. And I know that this practice is not something that we've grown up doing. We don't write down the names of all our friends. We don't do this, but by writing it down, you can revisit it. You can see if you're strengthening areas of your personal village in certain area, you can see where weaknesses are. But more importantly, you can celebrate achievements. You can look back over 3 months and say, wow, look at this. I have two more meaningful connections. I made a connection with a professional who's taking care of this concern in my life, and I joined a club. And now I've got some purpose in my life that's really making an impact. Okay, let me go to the next slide, and then I think I'm going to be able to, we'll start fielding some of the questions I see that are coming in. Okay, remember, so building your personal village is truly the most important thing when we are thinking about and talking about solo aging. Building our personal village, it saves us money, it provides connection, it provides us with joy and purpose down the road, okay? Gives us peace of mind too. Um, but on this topic of solo aging, where our discussions, and you saw it with a few of the questions that I had on the first slide, it always kind of migrates over to who is going to be my healthcare and financial proxy? Who is going to make decisions for my healthcare and my finances if I can't do that anymore, or if I'm having difficulty doing that? And as you saw in the questions, and I see a few of the questions that have come in since I started talking, it's who do I get to do this? All right. So here's here's my thoughts on this. And again, I don't know if you all can see this. This is a magic wand, okay? I've been trying to get it to work. Sometimes I can get it to work, sometimes I can solve a problem, but um what my goal is to get you to think differently, and maybe there's an idea that is sparked that makes a complex challenge like this easier. The first thing that I want you to know, and I'm not a lawyer, so we're not going to go into estate planning and the details of getting a healthcare and a financial power of attorney. The most important thing is that this is a role, a very important role that somebody plays in our life. And the most important thing is not a law degree, it's trustworthiness. Okay? It's finding somebody that understands and respects your healthcare wishes. They understand what you want for the healthcare power. And then finding someone who will handle your finances responsibly, as they will have extensive control over your assets for the financial power of attorney. It's trustworthiness. That's the most important thing. And one of the things that I find in our discussions is that folks, they just want kind of like a silver bullet. They want, hey, isn't there a profession that I could just call up on my phone and say, will you be my financial power of attorney? And I got to tell you, fraud against older adults is one of the number one concerns on my mind, and the number one concern on AARP and mind. And by if you're in a vulnerable position and desperate to find a proxy in these two areas, you can open yourself up to fraud. So I'm gonna give you some solutions for the challenging situation, especially for solo agers that don't have family or somebody close to them that they trust, on how to find this solution. And so Here's the thing, though. A lot of times when I talk to solo agers, they're like, "Oh, all my friends have kids. They're taking care of this stuff." But listen, have you talked to some of your friends with kids? I mean, family is sometimes the last person that you would want to assign this. And it's, I'm just going to read right here from my slide. While family members are often chosen, it's not mandatory. You can select a close friend or even a professional if they're the best fit for this role. And I'm going to go through a couple of different types of professionals that are sometimes used in this role. And I'm going to share with you one creative way on how uh, professionals can be used in this role. So, in 4 states, they have a licensed profession called professional fiduciaries. And essentially, this is somebody who it can you can pay to manage your financial powers of attorney. There's 4 states that it's licensed in, but I'm going to still tell you is that if you're going to bring on a professional to handle this important, trustworthy job of handling your financial power, you still have to make a relationship. Do not get lulled into, oh, I'm going to call up a professional fiduciary. All my problems are solved. If I was doing this, if I was in your shoes and concerned about this, I would be meeting with number one, two or three professional fiduciaries. And then the one that I liked the best, before I signed up, I would make sure that I had a relationship with them. I would take them out to lunch maybe monthly for 3 months to make sure we're simpatico before I sign over a financial or healthcare power to this individual. All right. So remember, just because there are professionals out there doing this, treat them the same way that you would if you were assigning this to your friend. You wouldn't assign this to a friend that you just met this weekend watching the football game in the bar, even though you like that person, even though you think they're responsible, you need to get to know that person, whether they're professional or the fan of the same football team that you like. Attorneys can sometimes do some of these roles. Social workers or care managers. Um, I've been told that there are some nonprofit organizations in the country that do this. And on some of our discussions, people have end of life doulas, a new profession that's out there that helps people make sure that they end their life the way that they want to with dignity and respect. And so these are some of the professions that could help you. But all right, Susan's on there. Um, Susan, I'm just going to finish this one point and then we're going to get to these questions. And
Finish.
the one point is today, actually, I had a roundtable discussion with aging life care managers, and this topic came up. And one of the aging life care managers described how you can hire an aging life care manager to appropriately help you find your proxies. And so the key is that you develop a relationship with an aging life care manager. All right. Now, the aging life care manager can't be a fiduciary, can't be your financial power of attorney because they are helping you with healthcare challenges. But there are some aging life care managers that can actually be your healthcare power of attorney. But really, the role of the aging life care manager is they're going to be a quarterback on your team for your future healthcare and financial decision making if you can't do it anymore. So here's how it works. You pick the aging life care manager, you get a relationship with them. And again, take them out to lunch, do whatever, figure out which one they're happy with. Now you're going to tackle the who's going to be my healthcare and financial power of attorney. The aging life care manager is going to help you through that. They're going to brainstorm with you on your personal village. You might have somebody that's very appropriate in your village that you didn't think about, but by having this quarterback helping you navigate it, that's great. But let's assume that you have nobody in your network. let's assume that you're flying blind and you've now got the relationship with the aging life care manager. They can go to appropriate professionals that could serve in the role of healthcare and financial power. And for example, an attorney would be more apt to sign on to that role because it's a partnership with them and the aging life care manager. In other words, the attorney doesn't have 100% of the burden of making decisions. They know that you have a trusted relationship with an aging life care manager that is going to make that journey much navigated better. It's going to be equitable. There's going to be checks and balances. So there are solutions if you don't have people in your network now and you need these types of services. And I hope that that helps you understand that a little bit better. All right, Susan, I see we got some good questions here. You want me to start picking these things off?
Yeah, I do, but I just want to reiterate, first of all, for our audience today, um, download this copy that we're going to email to you and keep it as a guide. This is something that you can't say, oh, tomorrow's Thursday, I'm going to solve this. This is a process. And I think what Steve said that is so critical is that you need to be your own advocate. You need to take the wheel. And I believe that that message, Steve, and let's have a conversation about it. I feel like through your entire presentation, talking about your village, talking about what you're going to do, your joy, talking about your directives, I think that message follows through everything you talked about. You've got to take the wheel. You need to be your own advocate because the last thing you want is for those decisions to be taken away from you because you haven't planned appropriately. And I also love what Steve said. I have 3 children and I would never want to be dependent on them because, I live my life and I'm older and now I want them to have that same thing. I want to be a joy to them, not a burden, and I don't want them to be dependent on me. But I have a couple questions for you, Steve, and then I want you
Sure.
to jump into all these questions. And I think we've answered some of the questions.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you might be able to clarify some.
Mhm.
The personal village is so important because you don't want social isolation. There is actually fact that if you are socially isolated, that you can have a 40% increase in the chance of getting dementia. So be socially active and build your village. But how many people, I saw the little thing there of all the little ginger men, made me want a cookie, but how many people do you really need in your village?
Um, that is going to be different for every single person, okay? Like because you know, and it's how you get energy. And like here's the other thing. The social isolation thing, it's true. It really is. But how people get energy around other people is different. There's some people that, hey, look, I have a tight network of 4 friends. It's been amazing. And then there's some people that 400 is not enough. And and I think the key thing is it's this is why I say this personal purpose inventory is really figuring out, okay, what do you need to feel like you're living a purposeful life? And where are the voids? And when I brought up the person that, hey, look, I've always had 4 really close friends. A lot of the people that identify as solo agers that I talk to are in the boat where I always had 4 friends and now I've outlived them all. And so the volume, but there's not a number there, but I think one of the tests that we can put ourselves through is, okay, what would happen if I couldn't drive anymore? All right. And I live in a car dependent community. If you live in New York City and you don't drive, doesn't matter. probably never did drive. But what if I don't drive anymore? What if I got mobility issues getting around the home that I'm currently living in? What if I've outlived all my friends? And then last but not least, what if I had a cognitive changes in my cognitive health? Um, put those three things through the test that you're on your own. How are you going to manage in that situation? And it'll start creating ideas of where you might need to improve your personal village.
And the other thing that I think is so important that you said, I just want to emphasize it, is you said you could go to a cocktail party with 50 people in the room and you could feel lonely. You're not getting any satisfaction. You feel lonely. Yet you go to your bike club and there can be 10 people in the room and you feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. So that's why the joy aspect of this, what do you find joy in, is so important. And I love that you said, look back 20 years. What did you find joy in? And way back when, I used to volunteer in my kids' classrooms. And there was a lady, Barbara, who lived up the street in a community. She was 84. And she volunteered 3 days a week to help these 8-year-olds learn how to read. And I witnessed the connection she made with the kids. I witnessed the connection she made with the parents. And I witnessed the connection she made with the other teachers. And it brought her joy. I invited her for Thanksgiving one year. I mean, I felt like such a great connection, and I knew she was alone, but everything goes. So, okay.
And that's building, like, I mean, so Susan, like, I mean, without going through this webinar, like what you did right there is that's expanding and building your personal village. And that woman is like-minded. You connected with her, and that's what we're searching out. And I'm just asking people to be a little bit more intentional. It's and document it a little bit better because they'll be able to clarify where they need to build things up. I want to share one slide that I see in the questions. There, somebody asked, what are the 4 states that have licensed professional fiduciaries? California, Arizona, Illinois, and Oregon. But just because those 4 states have licensed professional fiduciaries, don't think that there's not resources in the other states. And in fact, I get a little bit concerned that in those 4 states that there's a licensing process for professional fiduciaries. I think that you have to be even more diligent to do your homework on these folks because if somebody is creates a fake license or something like that, they could really be seen as being credible and trustworthy, and they aren't. And so, just folks, on these 2 topics of healthcare and financial, if you don't have it now, okay, you're in the same situation. Invest a little bit more time and just make sure that you find somebody that's trustworthy.
I have a question. Do I have to live in that state to utilize their service?
I think so, and I think you'd want to. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to let you get to the questions, but I just want everyone to remember. I want you to revisit these slides again and again and send them. Maybe try to bond with someone over coffee or call Grace that you haven't talked to in months and say, Grace, I saw this webinar. That might be your initial connection that Grace could be in your
Yeah.
tribe. Got to
And
reconnect.
I'm glad you're bringing this up, Susan, that a lot of times we think planning is done in a lawyer's office or a financial planner's office. And what I want you to start thinking about is having conversations more, like have the conversations. And in fact, like folks that are on a budget that are doing estate planning, I always tell them, look, have the conversation on all these topics so your lawyer isn't charging you X dollars per hour to ask you these questions. You can just hand it over to them. Okay, let's see. Okay, Barbara says, I'm single and childless. Don't know how to find or I have no similar others for mutual support. Okay, Barbara, I'm glad you asked this question because I had an amazing conversation with somebody this week. She left her town on the West Coast and she moved to a Western Massachusetts town. Okay. Didn't know a soul. She just picked this town out and that's where she moved. And she identifies as a solo ager. No kids, no nothing. All right. And she basically jumped in with both feet and she started volunteering. She joined the local village. And what she did was she started a solo aging group in this village. And the reason she was calling me is that the group has expanded to like 60 people and she has friends now and she wants to do other stuff. She doesn't have time to manage this group anymore. She started in this new place with some intent and purpose and she made connections but she is adamant that there are a lot of people out there that need help in planning because they don't have loved ones and that's one of her purposes. But thanks to the fact that she made these moves, she now has a network. Now, I reflected on that conversation and I said, gosh, I'm not that I'm urging everybody to leave your hometown and go live somewhere else,
To
but the
Oregon.
fact is she didn't have a backstop, and she's in a new place. I mean, I think there's something to be said about that. Now, one of the things that she said to me at the end was she goes, I live in a senior apartment building. And I said, you know, that's again, like I want to have this woman on one of my podcasts. I said, gosh, man, you're doing everything that we talk about. And she said, what she said is, yeah, I know, I never thought that I'd live in a place like this, but I now have people that look out after me. I have a ride. I have this and the other. And one of the things I know probably a lot of you in the audience right now are sort of like, oh, I'm never going to move to one of those homes. Okay. But I want you to think about it. If you have changes in your life, um, a senior community like solves a lot of the solo aging concerns about getting a ride to the doctors, about what would happen if you fell and 3 days goes by before somebody discovers you and you have a sense of community. And I will tell you, I'm here at Kensington and Reston, and there are a bunch of happy people out there. Yeah, there's probably one or two if I talk to them and oh man, this, that, or other. I wish I was back in my home. But then they're going down the hallway to play bridge or do something with their new best friend. So just think about that. Okay,
Can
Michael
I
said,
add to that real quickly? And the
yeah.
reason I'm going to add to that is you said something really important. The reason we need to plan is, first of all, people are living longer. So a lot of senior communities have wait lists. And if you experience an accident, a fall, or some major health thing that you need that help, you should do your homework now and at least get on the list, because you're not going to have 6 months when they're discharging you from the hospital after a broken hip to figure it out. You're going to have options in place. So please be an advocate. Go ahead, Steve.
Great. I just saw another question that answers one of our first questions. And actually, here, I'm going to back this up because I meant to bring this up. Sarah Sheets, you are awesome to remind me of this. Okay, where can I find a trustworthy person to pay bills in case of cognitive decline? Um, I want you all to there's a profession called daily money managers, and they're not financial planners. They're like bookkeepers and bill payers and what have you. This profession is amazing, and definitely don't wait till you have cognitive decline because if you are working with a daily money manager, number one, they're taking care of a tedious task. But let me tell you, one of the best reasons to work with a daily money manager is the fraud thing. Every daily money manager that I've talked to has discovered potential fraud on their clients because they're reviewing. You got a second set of trained eyes reviewing your accounts and things of that nature. And Sarah says, just search in Google, Association of Daily Money Manager. their, as she says, their background checked, experience requirements, have to pass an exam. And here's the cool thing. Most daily money managers that I talk to, not only are they doing daily money management, but let's say that it's Wednesdays, they come over and you pay bills together, go through the mail, but then a lot of times they go out to eat, maybe, help you with the shopping trip, what have you. Um, let's see. Holy cow. Grace LeBeau is on this call. I am blown away. I'm going to probably start tearing up. Folks, there's a profession called aging life care management. Grace LeBeau is one of the pioneers in that business, and she says, "It's great to see and hear from you." Uh,
95.
Steve, 95-year-old solo ager doing well. I plan to use your ideas to benefit me and my 35-year-old grandchild. Man, Grace, that is so awesome. I can't believe that you're here.
Grace needs to share that with everyone
Yeah.
because I agree with her. The 35-year-olds, and I was just listening to a podcast on cell phones and how that is socially isolating all of us. Because
Hmm.
rather than engaging or having maybe a vulnerable conversation with a stranger at the market, everyone's on their phones. And people are even having really in-depth personal conversations on their phones. They don't realize they've got their earpods in, that everybody's listening to what they're saying, and it's just horrifying. So Grace, share this with your grandson. Hopefully he'll share it with his friends.
But talk about vulnerability. Like, look, folks, Grace in her career helped, I mean, thousands of families and individuals navigate the things that we're talking about now. And she's navigating them herself. Just like I've worked side by side with many professionals in my career. None of us have a crystal ball. Some of the professionals I work with have dementia. We don't know where life is going to take us. And so having conversations and making a plan. Susan, I see that it's almost 7 o'clock.
It
Uh,
is.
do,
It is.
do we have a hard stop or,
I think we can keep going for a few more minutes because I really want to get to Michael's question.
okay, read that to me.
Yeah, I think that's really important because you and I can answer that
Okay,
together.
here I go. Okay, Michael, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area and picked up the technology bug early. When can I learn how to use artificial intelligence to interact in a healthy and affirming ways for me? Is it fantasy hype or is there something substantial to explore? Well, Michael, first off, I because we've got a labor shortage, not only in senior living, but in all professions, we're going to start looking at technology to help us in ways that we never imagined that maybe seem like kind of creepy or what have you, but ultimately in the future it can help us. So this is a pretty cool thing that I'm just going to share that's on this topic. um, I've become friends with a entrepreneur who started a AI app called MemoMate. And basically, what MemoMate does is it prompts you with questions that you answer, and by answering it, you're essentially writing your life bio without having to type or pull out a notebook. So he did some testing of this product in some senior living communities where residents were using the AI bot and having conversations with it, and it was basically narrating their life story by asking questions. Well, it did that, and they had the nice little book that they could give to their kids, grandkids, or their next door neighbors. But the interesting thing is in the research after this is that the individuals that were participating in this program actually felt less lonely and isolated. They were talking to somebody, albeit an artificial device, that was not rolling its eyes when they were recounting their life history. that was asking them prompting questions. And they all thought it was really bizarre, but at the end of the day, it made them feel more meaningful, less isolated, and it's a piece of technology. And I know it's wacky, it's science fiction, and it's sort of like, oh, we need to go out and we need to make friends the old-fashioned way, going down and have a beer at the bar and meet somebody. Folks, did you realize that 50% of 18 to 24-year-old males have never asked, 50% have not asked a girl out on a date in person?
Because it's all online.
It's all online. Can you imagine that? Back in our day, you
Didn't
could
happen.
not go out on a date if you didn't ask somebody out in person. But now, over half the population has never even done it in person. That's the shocking thing. It's not like they did it once. It's like they haven't done it. So we're in a technology is changing things.
Anyway, we're going to have to sign off, but I just
Okay.
want to end up with the question that you answered from Michael about the AI and the memo mates. What a great cool thing to do, because it allows you, we talk about our memories, we talk about the power of that and joy. And what a great thing to give to your grandchildren or your children or your great grandchildren, a little bit about perspective into you. And I think it's a great thing. At first, when I saw the question, I thought AI, oh goodness, social isolation, but I think it's a great idea. My mother actually had me, I got a dictaphone or whatever and did that for her, and she loves it. We printed it out and she just loves it. So
I love it.
I, I just want to thank Steve Gurney. You are just such a valuable influence.
Trying to
For
get my magic wand to work.
I was thinking of Harry Potter and I was like, oh God.
This is a Harry Potter magic wand. I
You
found it in my
are-
daughter's room.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably got it at Universal Studios.
Yeah.
But I thought about that, and I just think it's so nice that you have dedicated your last 35 years for the solar agers and for the aging community. So thank you so much, and everybody will receive a copy. Please share it, and we can't thank you enough. Thank you, Kensington Senior Living, and we'll see you soon.
And
Thanks.
now I get to go eat some of the great food here at Kensington Reston right down the hallway. I'm psyched. All right. See
I'm
y'all.
jealous. I'm not here. I'm on the West Coast.
Okay.
I
See
gotta
you.
go make my dinner. But thank
Yeah.
you, everybody, and have a great night.
You bet. Bye.
Take care.